Hey folks, it's Jared Manninen from the website TahoeTrailGuide.com. Today I'm going to take a little bit of a break from a straightforward how-to video. And I think this kind of mirrors my own process, to be honest, and probably many of yours, where you can only learn so many like textbook skills before you actually just have to put in the miles, put in the repetitions, that sort of thing. So the other day I had the privilege of teaching a class of 13 from Lake Tahoe Community College's Wilderness Outdoor program. They're in their winter curriculum currently, and this class was a winter adventure oriented thing. So they were trying some alpine skiing, backcountry alpine skiing, snowboarding, backcountry snowboarding, and then the day that I got to work with them, they were doing Nordic practice. And it was super fun working with them because they were all young, they were all eager. I was a little bit nervous and concerned that maybe they wouldn't be too interested in cross-country skiing because, you know, it's not quite as cool looking as alpine skiing, for example, at least in a lot of people's minds. Not mine, of course, but I was a little bit concerned. But right off the bat, they were just like sponges, soaking up information and tips. So, and no fear. Oh my gosh, you know, like they were going for it. They want to learn teleturns like right off the bat, which, you know, we had to progress up to them a little bit, and you know, they got a long way to go, but it just reinvigorated my desire to keep training. Anyway, I just want to have a little bit of a discussion today about, you know, my practice, my process, and the fact that downhill technique on cross-country skis is not easy. It's very challenging, and it's just because the gear we use is light. It's not designed specifically for downhill like an alpine ski. So we have to make some adjustments, but mostly we just have to like put in the miles, get the repetitions in, and train. And that's really the bottom line. And I've always been a big advocate of dedicated practice because it's really the only way to learn stuff. You have to do it a lot to get really good at it. So, you know, if you're beating yourself up because you can't get quite, you know, the turn that you want to make downhill, don't worry, just keep at it. My focus for today's downhill session was to relax in the fall line for a little longer than usual and let my telemark and alpine turns manifest more naturally. Basically, I've been trying to create more time in which to move from one edge set to the other while performing both of those downhill turns. Since cross-country skis are long, straight, and cambered to keep the grip zone off the snow, they yield a greater turning radius. This simply means that cross-country skis require more time and space in which to turn smoothly. But hilly terrain within a traditional cross-country ski trail system is usually short, narrow, and serpentine, so we often have to be really quick when making any kind of downhill turns. Many of us just default to using a basic snowplow with a couple of snowplow turns mixed in for good measure. Some adventurous folks might start to incorporate stem Christies to challenge themselves and get more out of their downhill experience. On the other hand, race-oriented people will frequently just step turn and straight line it down those same hills in order to either maintain or accelerate their pace. In essence, we have a lot of tools from which to draw upon without having to get into the risky business of learning telemark and parallel turns. Again, cross-country ski gear isn't necessarily designed for those particular downhill techniques, but that doesn't mean we can't learn to do them on it. For me though, I've recently realized that the biggest barrier to learning telemark and alpine turns hasn't been the gear that I'm running. Rather, it's the fact that I've been practicing my downhill technique for so many years on short and narrow trails. As a result, I've developed the habit of forcing many of my turns. This is usually out of necessity though, because I don't really want to hit a tree or boulder just off the trail. But feeling rushed is nearly always going to be counter to learning to perform anything properly. This is a big contributing factor behind developing bad habits. That is, trying to learn new stuff while being in a constant state of mental duress. Skiing downhill on cross-country skis is stressful enough, let alone doing so on short, steep, and narrow hills. Ideally, we should learn to perform new techniques in a slow, controlled, and repeatable manner before adding power and speed to the mix. It's just really challenging to do that when we're always feeling rushed. So this is why I decided to come back to this practice hill, which is significantly wider than most of the other hills on our trail system. Keep in mind though that even though I'm not using the entire width of the trail, the extra space represents time and therefore allows me to relax. I can bail at any point without feeling like I'm going to run into an obstacle, catch my skis on the edge of the trail, or whatever. So with that extra time, I feel safer sitting in the fall line for a split second longer so that I can more effectively drill the proper body movement involved in shifting from one edge set to the other. Another problem with the hills on cross-country ski trails that can cause the rush factor is that they're usually pretty short. I know that a lot of people are completely fine with this because it means that they don't have to ski downhill that much, but short hills means that we're either going to have to hasten our turns in order to link a few together or be content with only doing a couple of them. Neither scenario is great for learning. As you watch me go up and down this hill, you'll see that I'm barely making 4 to 6 turns on each run, sometimes less. And for me, the first turn is always the most challenging because at that point, we're transitioning from one set of body movements to another. So it isn't until I'm able to perform a couple of turns before I find a good rhythm and can really feel whether or not I'm expressing proper downhill body positioning, movement, and timing. On top of that, the final turn is usually just a hockey stop. It's good training, but realistically, it's not a full downhill turn. This particular hill is wide enough, but since it's not very long, it's still less than ideal. Therefore, I again feel like I'm being rushed. We do what we can with what we have, but all of this just contributes to the fact that learning downhill technique on cross-country skis can be very challenging. So ever since last week, I've been channeling the fearless mindset of those college students by forcing myself to sit in the fall line for a little bit longer while I find the correct body position to shift to the new edge set. And I've also started bringing my cross-country skis over to the downhill side of the resort at which I work in order to practice telemark and alpine turns on much longer and more sustained downhill runs. I've definitely caught some funny looks from folks based on the gear that I'm running, but it's all good once they see me ripping it up on those bunny hills. Okay folks, if you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Check out TahoeTrailGuide.com for more information about cross-country skiing and snowshoeing. Thank you to all of my Patreon subscribers, everyone who tips via Venmo and PayPal. You guys are super generous. I really appreciate it. I also appreciate everyone who subscribes to me on various social media platforms. I really appreciate the support. So thank you very much. I encourage you, keep grinding, keep working on all your techniques, striding, uphill, downhill, everything. It all will pay off big dividends in the long run as long as you just stay consistent at your training. So thanks again. I'm gonna go do a little bit of skiing, so take care.